Stories and Documentary Network.
Imagine a world where mighty cities thrived, their walls echoing with the sounds of commerce, religion, and power. Palaces gleamed under the sun, temples rose to the heavens, and civilizations flourished through innovation, trade, and diplomacy. Yet almost overnight, this brilliance vanished. Around 1200 BCE, the eastern Mediterranean was plunged into chaos. The Mycenaeans abandoned their citadels, the Hittites disappeared from history, and even Egypt, long thought invincible, faced turmoil and invasion. Fires scarred city walls, trade routes collapsed, and a web of intricate societies unraveled in what we now call the Bronze Age collapse. What caused this sweeping catastrophe? Was it marauding invaders, devastating natural disasters, or the slow decay of complex societies under their own weight? Perhaps it was all of these forces converging at once. A perfect storm of destruction. This documentary will journey through the rise and sudden fall of these ancient civilizations, uncovering the archaeological evidence, the untold mysteries, and the echoes of a lost world. As we explore these ancient ruins, we confront one of history's most haunting questions. How could the brilliance of entire civilizations disappear almost overnight, leaving behind only whispers and ruins? The Bronze Age, spanning roughly from 3300 to 1200 BCE, marked one of the most transformative periods in human history. It was an era of remarkable innovation, technological breakthroughs, and the emergence of complex societies. Across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East, civilizations rose from fertile river valleys and strategic trade hubs, leaving behind a legacy of monumental architecture, written records, and cultural achievements that continue to awe scholars today. In the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the Sumerians had pioneered urban living, creating some of the first cities, like Uruk and Ur, and developing cuneiform writing, a tool that would forever change human communication. Egypt, meanwhile, reached unprecedented heights under the New Kingdom, expanding its territory and influence from the Nile Delta to the Levant, building temples and pyramids that stood as monuments to divine kingship. The Hittites established a powerful empire in Anatolia, mastering ironworking and military strategy, while the Mycenaeans fortified their cities on the Greek mainland with massive stone walls, showcasing both engineering skill and political organization. Trade and diplomacy were the lifeblood of these civilizations. The Mediterranean and Aegean seas were bustling with merchant ships, carrying goods, ideas, and cultural practices between far-flung societies. Minoans from Crete traded pottery and olive oil with Egypt, while tin and copper, essential for bronze production, moved across hundreds of miles of treacherous terrain and turbulent waters. This exchange of materials also fostered a cross-pollination of artistic styles, religious motifs, and technological knowledge. Temples in Hittite Anatolia bore stylistic influences from Mesopotamia. Mycenaean frescoes echoed Minoan designs. Egyptian religious iconography traveled across the sea, leaving subtle imprints on neighboring cultures. Social hierarchies flourished alongside these advancements. Kings and pharaohs wielded immense authority. Priests maintained religious order, and warriors protected the wealth of the state. Behind the grandeur of palaces and temples lay a web of scribes, artisans, farmers, and merchants whose labor sustained the flourishing empires. Administrative systems became increasingly sophisticated, with detailed records of taxation, trade, and diplomacy inscribed on clay tablets, stone stelae, and papyri. These bureaucratic marvels allowed states to coordinate vast armies, organize monumental construction projects, and manage complex trade networks that spanned continents. Yet beneath the surface of prosperity, these civilizations carried seeds of fragility. Centralized power meant that a disruption to the leadership could send ripples of instability through the entire society. Dependence on trade for essential resources, tin for bronze, timber for construction, or grain for feeding populations, made cities vulnerable to blockades, raids, or environmental shifts. Agricultural systems, while productive, relied on predictable rainfall and irrigation, which could be jeopardized by droughts, floods, or soil depletion. Moreover, competition and rivalry simmered alongside collaboration. City-states and empires frequently clashed over territory, resources, and trade dominance. Armies were raised not only to defend borders, but also to assert control over distant lands. Alliances were fragile. The betrayal of one kingdom could trigger a cascade of conflicts across the region. Even the most powerful societies were interlinked, their fates entwined through economics, diplomacy, and warfare. A disturbance in one region could ripple across the network, destabilizing entire civilizations. By the end of the 13th century BCE, the Eastern Mediterranean resembled a fragile tapestry. Threads of trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange wove together the prosperity of empires, yet the same threads were poised to unravel. It was a world on the brink, where sudden calamity, whether natural or human-made, could topple the mightiest of civilizations. And soon, that cataclysm would arrive. The stage was set for one of history's most enigmatic events, the Bronze Age collapse. Entire kingdoms would vanish, cities would burn, and the intricate web of civilizations that had defined an era would fray almost overnight. The question remained, how did societies that had achieved such brilliance succumb so suddenly? The cities of the Bronze Age were more than mere settlements. They were living monuments to human ingenuity, ambition, and the quest for order amidst chaos. Step into the citadels of Mycenae or Tiryns, and one is immediately struck by the enormity of the Cyclopean walls, massive stones piled so perfectly that later generations believed only giants could have moved them. Within these fortifications lay palaces adorned with frescoes depicting warriors, hunting scenes, and divine rituals, a visual testament to power, faith, and cultural sophistication. Travel eastward to Hattusa, the Hittite capital, and the city reveals a complex blueprint of planning rarely seen in antiquity. Streets intersected with precision, temples and royal palaces dominated the skyline, and gates bearing carved lions guarded the city's entrance. This architectural foresight was not merely functional. It projected authority and inspired awe, conveying that the state was both organized and divinely sanctioned. Bridges and roads facilitated the movement of armies, traders, and envoys, binding the empire into a cohesive whole despite its vast territorial reach. In the Nile Valley, Egyptian cities reflected a different kind of grandeur. Here, monumental temples such as Karnak and Luxor served as both spiritual and administrative centers. Obelisks reached toward the heavens, while intricately decorated walls narrated the pharaoh's conquests and the god's favor. Water management and irrigation systems demonstrated an understanding of hydraulic engineering that ensured fertile fields along the lifeblood of the Nile. Palaces and workers' quarters, though less ostentatious, were strategically integrated into the urban fabric, creating a balance between grandeur and utility. Minoan Crete offered yet another vision of urban brilliance. Knossos, with its labyrinthine corridors, multi-story architecture, and elaborate drainage systems, stands as a testament to both aesthetic sophistication and practical ingenuity. The integration of storage rooms, living spaces, and ceremonial areas indicates a civilization that understood the interdependence of daily life, governance, and ritual. Frescoes of bull-leaping athletes and vibrant marine scenes suggest a culture that celebrated movement, artistry, and nature, embedding identity into the very walls of the city. Despite variations in geography and culture, a common theme emerges. These cities were not random, they were meticulously planned. Fortifications, public spaces, religious centers, and residential quarters were interwoven with careful attention to function, symbolism, and defense. Roads, canals, and moats served not only practical purposes, but also reinforced social hierarchies and political power. In every stone and every layout, one senses the pulse of civilizations that believed their cities could endure forever. Yet the very brilliance that defined Bronze Age urban planning would become vulnerable in the face of sudden calamity. Walls could be breached, waterways could dry, and roads could become paths of invasion rather than commerce. The genius of construction, while remarkable, could not shield these cities from the forces, both natural and human, that would soon bring them to ruin. The echoes of these lost metropolises remain, whispering of civilizations that once believed they were immortal. The brilliance of Bronze Age civilizations extended far beyond stone and mortar. It thrived in networks that spanned the Mediterranean, Aegean, and Near East. Trade was the lifeblood that connected distant kingdoms, a complex web of exchange that enabled cities to flourish and cultures to intermingle. Without trade, the swords of warriors, the grains that fed populations, and the bronze tools that built empires could never have existed in such abundance. Maritime power became a hallmark of civilizations like the Minoans, who navigated the Aegean with skill unmatched in their era. Their ships carried pottery, olive oil, and wine to ports across Crete, Anatolia, and the Levant. In return, they acquired tin from distant lands, copper from Cyprus, and exotic goods from Egypt and the Near East. Each cargo was more than material. It was a bridge of ideas, introducing motifs, artistic styles, and technologies from one culture to another. The Mycenaeans, inland yet deeply connected through maritime routes, engaged in vigorous trade with the Egyptians and Hittites. Luxury goods, ivory carvings, gold ornaments, and intricately designed pottery traveled thousands of miles, demonstrating the wealth and sophistication of these societies. But trade was not merely economic. It was diplomatic. Gifts of precious metals and finely crafted objects often accompanied treaties, alliances, and messages between kings and pharaohs, reinforcing bonds in a world where communication relied on trust and intermediaries. Cultural exchange went beyond material goods. Writing systems, religious ideas, and artistic traditions flowed along these routes like invisible currents. The spread of cuneiform, for instance, allowed Hittites, Egyptians, and Mesopotamians to engage in record-keeping, treaties, and correspondence. Religious rituals, myths, and deities traversed borders, shaping the beliefs and practices of neighboring peoples. Bronze Age societies, though separated by mountains and seas, participated in a shared cultural sphere, each influencing and borrowing from the other. However, the interconnectedness that enriched these civilizations also carried profound risk. Trade routes were arteries of vulnerability. A disrupted supply of tin could halt the production of bronze, crippling armies and artisans alike. Raids by foreign powers, piracy on the seas, or natural disasters could sever connections between cities, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. The more a civilization depended on these networks, the more fragile it became in the face of widespread disruption. By the late 13th century BCE, this intricate web of connectivity was both a strength and a weakness. Cities flourished on exchange and interdependence, but this same reliance made the entire system precarious. When the Sea Peoples launched their raids, when drought struck the fertile valleys, and when political turmoil destabilized rulers, the disruption spread like a contagion. One city falling could trigger a domino effect, sending shockwaves through distant lands, destabilizing the foundations of empires built on commerce, culture, and cooperation. In the end, trade and cultural exchange were double-edged swords. They elevated civilizations to unprecedented heights, but also laid the groundwork for their sudden and dramatic downfall. The story of the Bronze Age is one of brilliance interwoven with fragility. A tale where prosperity and vulnerability walked hand in hand, setting the stage for the mysterious collapse that would echo through history. By the 12th century BCE, the intricate network of Bronze Age civilizations, once a marvel of human ingenuity, was under immense strain. The Mycenaeans, Hittites, and Egyptians, all societies that had flourished for centuries, found themselves confronting forces they could neither predict nor fully control. This period, now etched into history as the Bronze Age collapse, was marked by sudden devastation, the abandonment of cities, and the unraveling of empires. One of the most mysterious and feared players in this era were the Sea Peoples, a confederation of maritime raiders whose origins remain uncertain. Egyptian records describe their attacks with a mix of awe and terror, depicting them as relentless warriors capable of devastating entire coastal regions. They struck cities along the Levantine coast and attempted to breach the defenses of Egypt itself. Archaeologists and historians continue to debate whether the Sea Peoples were invaders, displaced refugees, or mercenary groups exploiting a period of weakness. Their sudden appearance in multiple regions simultaneously highlights the fragility of even the most fortified civilizations. Yet human adversaries were only one element in a larger tapestry of collapse. Environmental pressures compounded the strain. Tree ring data, pollen analysis, and sediment cores suggest prolonged droughts across the eastern Mediterranean, leading to failed harvests and food shortages. Agricultural systems that had sustained populations for centuries could not cope with these climatic shifts. The scarcity of food not only undermined public confidence in rulers, but also fueled internal unrest, rebellions, and migrations, further destabilizing already vulnerable societies. Internal political turmoil accelerated the decline. Centralized states depended heavily on strong leadership and complex bureaucracies. When kings or pharaohs died without effective successors, or when political factions competed violently for power, the entire administrative structure could falter. Hattusa, the Hittite capital, shows archaeological evidence of hurriedly abandoned palaces, hastily burned archives, and shattered temples, suggesting both internal strife and external attack. The Mycenaean palace centers were similarly destroyed by fire, with cities deserted, roads overgrown, and once thriving ports silenced. Trade networks, the arteries of economic and cultural life, also collapsed. Interruptions in the flow of tin and copper, the essential metals for bronze, crippled industries, leaving armies without weapons and artisans without tools. Merchants and diplomats could no longer move between cities safely, eroding alliances and leaving states isolated. A localized disruption could cascade into a regional catastrophe, and soon, even the most resilient civilizations found themselves unable to recover. Egypt, long a beacon of stability, felt the tremors of collapse acutely. Pharaohs of the New Kingdom struggled to repel the Sea Peoples and maintain control over territories in the Levant. Though Egypt survived while other powers fell, it experienced profound political and economic setbacks. Fortresses along trade routes were abandoned, foreign alliances dissolved, and monumental construction slowed dramatically. The New Kingdom's decline serves as a stark reminder that even civilizations with immense military and cultural resources were vulnerable to the forces converging in this period. The Bronze Age collapse was not a single, isolated event, but a convergence of crises: invasions, climate change, internal upheaval, and economic disruption. It reshaped the Eastern Mediterranean in profound ways, creating a vacuum that would alter the trajectory of history. Entire cultures vanished, leaving behind only ruins, artifacts, and enigmatic inscriptions. Cities that had once bustled with commerce and ritual fell silent. Civilization itself seemed to falter, a sudden reminder of the fragile balance between human achievement and the inexorable forces of nature and conflict. The question that haunts historians remains: how could such advanced and interconnected societies crumble so suddenly? The answers lie partially in the material remains left behind, a story written in stone, ash, and clay, waiting to be deciphered by those willing to look beyond the surface. Archaeology is the window through which we glimpse the vanished world of the Bronze Age. Across the Eastern Mediterranean, meticulous excavations have revealed the remnants of cities, fortresses, and temples that once symbolized the might of powerful civilizations. Each ruin, each fragment of pottery, and each cuneiform tablet tells a story of human ingenuity, daily life, and sudden destruction. In Mycenae, archaeologists uncovered the remains of palatial complexes, storerooms filled with pottery, and monumental grave circles. The traces of fire and violent destruction indicate that these cities did not decline gradually. They were razed, abandoned, and left to the mercy of time. Frescoes depicting chariots, warriors, and ceremonial rituals offer a glimpse into a society that valued both military prowess and artistic expression. The sudden abandonment of these centers, often leaving personal belongings behind, points to an urgent and catastrophic upheaval. Hattusa, the Hittite capital, provides another compelling narrative. Excavations have revealed city gates adorned with carved lions, temples, royal archives, and complex road systems. Clay tablets from the archives contain diplomatic correspondence, treaties, and records of military campaigns, offering insight into the political dynamics of the era. Yet many of these archives end abruptly, as if the scribes themselves vanished, leaving history incomplete and tantalizingly silent. Archaeologists have also studied the ruins of Ugarit on the Syrian coast, a vital port city that once linked Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Egypt. The discovery of cuneiform tablets detailing trade, diplomacy, and daily life reveals a highly organized and interconnected society. But the final layers of Ugarit city reveal fire, destruction, and abandonment, echoing the patterns seen across the region. Artifacts recovered from these sites offer further insight into the human dimension of the collapse. Weapons, tools, jewelry, and ceramics reveal both the sophistication of these societies and the abruptness of their demise. Buried beneath layers of ash and debris are the intimate details of daily life: food storage, religious offerings, and personal possessions. Evidence of lives interrupted and communities erased almost overnight. Even environmental archaeology has contributed to the story. Sediment analysis, tree rings, and pollen studies suggest that prolonged droughts coincided with the collapse, while isotopic studies on human remains reveal malnutrition and population stress. These scientific clues, combined with the material remains, provide a multi-dimensional view of how civilizations once thought invincible could fall so suddenly. The archaeological record is incomplete, fragmented, and enigmatic, yet it offers invaluable insights into the Bronze Age collapse. Every excavation is a step closer to understanding the forces that toppled empires, disrupted trade, and reshaped the ancient world. It is in these ruins, burned cities, abandoned fortresses, and scattered artifacts that the story of the collapse unfolds, reminding us of both the brilliance and the fragility of human civilization. Despite centuries of research, the Bronze Age collapse continues to baffle historians and archaeologists. The precise causes remain elusive, hidden beneath layers of ash, clay, and stone. Scholars have proposed numerous theories, but no single explanation satisfies the complexity of this enigmatic period. Perhaps it was not a single force, but a perfect storm of multiple crises converging simultaneously, toppling even the mightiest of civilizations. One of the most debated elements is the role of the Sea Peoples. Egyptian inscriptions depict them as fierce invaders capable of wreaking havoc across coastal cities, yet their origins remain shrouded in mystery. Were they displaced populations fleeing famine, opportunistic raiders, or mercenary groups exploiting a vulnerable world? Archaeological evidence suggests that while they may have contributed to destruction in some regions, they alone cannot explain the widespread collapse. Their movements may have acted as a catalyst, exacerbating existing vulnerabilities rather than serving as the sole cause. Environmental factors also play a central role in the debate. Climatic studies indicate prolonged droughts and shifts in rainfall patterns, which would have stressed agricultural systems and led to food shortages. Malnutrition, social unrest, and mass migrations likely followed, undermining political stability and weakening defenses. Yet climate alone cannot account for the selective destruction of palaces, temples, and trade networks. Human agency must also have been a significant factor. Internal socio-political upheavals may have been equally decisive. Centralized administrations, while efficient in times of stability, were highly susceptible to failure when leadership faltered or bureaucracies collapsed. Rebellions, succession crises, and factional disputes could have rapidly destabilized entire regions, turning prosperity into chaos. When coupled with environmental stress and external attacks, even the most advanced civilizations became vulnerable to sudden and catastrophic decline. The fragility of interconnected systems is another crucial consideration. Trade networks, which linked Egypt, the Hittites, Mycenaeans, Minoans, and beyond, were both a strength and a vulnerability. Disruption in one part of this complex web, whether due to invasion, famine, or political collapse, could cascade across the region. A shortage of tin or copper, critical for producing bronze weapons and tools, might halt armies and artisans alike, creating a domino effect of societal failure. In the end, the Bronze Age collapse remains a puzzle with pieces scattered across time and geography. The evidence suggests a convergence of multiple factors: external invasions, climate change, internal instability, and economic disruption, working in tandem to topple civilizations that once seemed indestructible. Yet the full story is still obscured, buried beneath ruins, ashes, and forgotten histories, challenging modern scholars to interpret the faint echoes of a lost world. The more we uncover, the more profound the mystery becomes. How could civilizations that mastered the arts of war, trade, and administration vanish almost overnight, leaving only silence behind? Though the Bronze Age collapse plunged the Eastern Mediterranean into chaos, it did not erase the ingenuity of these civilizations. Out of the ruins arose new societies, shaped by both memory and innovation. The collapse created a void that allowed survivors to rebuild, adapt, and carry forward fragments of knowledge that would later flourish in unexpected ways. The Phoenicians, emerging from the ruins of earlier coastal cities, became masterful traders and navigators. They spread their alphabet throughout the Mediterranean, influencing Greek and Latin scripts and creating a linguistic legacy that would persist for millennia. Greek culture, inheriting traditions from Mycenaean civilization, would eventually give rise to philosophy, theater, and democratic ideals, echoing the intellectual achievements of the vanished Bronze Age world. Technological and artistic knowledge also endured. Metalworking, pottery styles, and architectural techniques passed through generations, influencing the design of later cities and fortifications. Even the lessons of collapse, the vulnerabilities inherent in complex societies, were absorbed indirectly, guiding the strategies and governance of subsequent civilizations. These echoes demonstrate that while entire societies may vanish, their influence can resonate far beyond their physical demise. Cultural memory, embedded in myths, oral histories, and literature, preserved fragments of the past. Tales of heroic warriors, epic sieges, and lost kingdoms carried forward the spirit of these ancient peoples, bridging the gap between destruction and rebirth. In this sense, the collapse was not an absolute end, but a transformation, a reconfiguration of societies that would ultimately give rise to the civilizations of the Iron Age and beyond. The Bronze Age collapse also serves as a timeless reminder of the delicate balance between human ingenuity and vulnerability. It underscores that civilizations, no matter how advanced, are subject to forces beyond their control, natural, social, and political. The echoes of this lost world resonate not only in history books and archaeological sites, but also in the way we understand the fragility and resilience of human societies. The Bronze Age collapse stands as both a warning and a marvel. It reveals the brilliance of ancient civilizations, their art, engineering, trade networks, and cultural achievements, while reminding us of their vulnerability. Cities that once teemed with life were reduced to ruins, and entire empires vanished almost overnight. Yet from these ashes arose new societies, carrying forward the legacy of the past. The story of the Bronze Age is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the fragile beauty of civilization, a mystery that continues to captivate, challenge, and inspire us to look closely at the forces that shape the rise and fall of societies.